Hi, today I'm going to be making coffee cake. I've made it a few times. Coffee cake's pretty easy to make and it usually turns out pretty good. Although I've never tried this recipe before, so try it with me and let's make some coffee cake. First thing you want to do is you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Next what you want to do is you want to grease and flour a 9 by 9 inch baking pan. In my case, I'm using an 8 by 8 inch glass dish. It's close enough. I usually take some wax paper, put it in some Crisco or grease, some shortening, and then rub it around the edges. Make sure you get all of it. Once you've done that, take some flour. You don't need much, and just lightly sprinkle it in there. And then what you're going to want to do with this is spread it around. Kind of shake it, make sure it gets everywhere. It'd be best to do this over a sink, but you continue this process and eventually the whole thing will be covered with flour. Now that your pan has been greased and floured, we're going to mix together some dry ingredients. The dry ingredients call for 2 cups of flour, use a butter knife to level it off, 1, 2, and then a teaspoon of baking soda. Level that off using the container in most cases. There's a teaspoon. And then a teaspoon of baking powder. Also make sure it's been leveled off. Oops. There you go. Now for the next part, you're going to need half a cup of butter, which is 1 stick. I left mine out to soften, although the recipe didn't specify. I think that'd be a good idea. Get your stick in there. 1 cup of sugar, and then 2 eggs, which I also let sit at room temperature. With eggs, it's good to do 1 hard hit. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cream these together. We're going to beat the butter, which means you mix it very fast. Of course, start out slow though. You don't want your ingredients to go flying out of the bowl. As you can see, that is beginning to look smooth. Now what we need to add to this is our flour mixture, and I'd recommend doing this very slowly. And it said beat this until it becomes smooth. Now what we need to add to this is a cup of sour cream. With sour cream you can fill it a little over the rim if you want, only because there's air pockets And when it comes to measuring things, you want the whole thing to be full. So it's okay to go a little extra with the sour cream. Now we need a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now we're going to mix this together until smooth. Now with this we're going to do on a lower speed. It's going to be more of a stir, less of a beating. As you can see, it's starting to come together. I'm going to stop it at one point just to take an icing spatula and kind of push in as much of that sour cream as I can. That way it all mixes, and to get some off of this, off of the top here. Okay, that looks good. Now we're going to go back to the bowl we had our flour mixture in, and we're going to make kind of like a little filling to go in this. The flavored filling on the inside, you need half a cup of confectioner's sugar, which is powdered sugar. Okay. Maybe we could have done a little better than that. And then on top of that, we're going to need 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, pure ground cinnamon, which is very strong, and that's why we're only using 2 teaspoons. Actually, the amount I'm down to now, I'm just going to have to use the rest of it. I was a little low on the spice, so make sure you don't run out of your spices. Okay. Now what we can do is take half your batter, pour about half of it into your pan, your square 9x9, or in my case 8x8 pan. I like to spread mine out with the spatula. Go. Okay, now take half of the mixture you just made, the confectioner's sugar and cinnamon. The original recipe called to add some chopped walnuts to this, but I don't like chopped walnuts, so I omitted them. But add anything you want. It's good to be creative with cooking. If you like walnuts, go with walnuts. I believe the recipe called for, I think, a couple tablespoons of them. So. Alright, take half of this and just sprinkle it on. Okay, this is going to cook really well, hopefully. Now take your batter and put the rest on. Try to get out all the batter that you can. That's why using a rubber spatula is really good for scraping it out. This is thicker than the recipes I've done before, but it'll turn out fine. So spread it around. Smells amazing, and that's always a good indicator for recipes. Okay, now take the rest of this and sprinkle that on there. Our powdered sugar, confectioner's sugar, and cinnamon. Oops. Kind of spread. Okay, spread that out. I'm getting a little messy with it, but I'm baking it, and it's for my family, so it's alright. I wouldn't do this if you worked in a restaurant. Okay, now take 2 tablespoons of melted butter, just for added flavor, and drizzle it on top. and that will help it taste good. Because, of course, butter is awesome. Okay, now take this delicious looking coffee cake we just made, stick it in your preheated oven, and the recipe calls for an hour of baking, or until the top springs back. My oven's really hot, and it's always good to just check on things anyway. But with baked goods, usually it's good to don't open the door, because that'll let in some cool air, so just look through a window. But anyway, I'm going to check on this at about 40 minutes, see how it looks. But between 40 minutes and an hour, maybe if your oven's colder, a little longer. But an hour from now, we'll have good coffee cake. Also, make sure you kind of try to put it in the center or wherever the recipe tells you to put it. Sometimes it will specify part of the rack or part of the oven. Otherwise, just go for the center. Okay, it's been probably about 42, 43 minutes. And just like I said, with my oven, how hot it is, it looks done. Mine might even be a little bit burnt. But I still think it turned out alright. Just a little crispy. As you can tell, it's very dark, and it's too hot to touch, but if I were to touch it, it would definitely spring back. So I'm going to let this cool down, and then I'm going to try it and see how it tastes. A good tip with hot burning things is, my girlfriend let me know about this. If you're baking something and it seems close to burning, don't leave it in the pan. Some recipes say to leave it in the pan to cool down, so that's fine. But this recipe did not specify. So because it was burnt, I didn't want it to burn anymore. I flipped it quickly out of the 8x8 Pyrex onto a pan and then onto the cooling rack so it was right side up. Now it won't burn, it won't cook much more as it sits here. So I'd give it 20 minutes or so to cool down and then I'll try a piece. Alright, my coffee cake has cooled a little bit. I'm going to have it with some nice tea here. Now the important part, taste. It was good. Turned out really good. The cinnamon powdered sugar filling is really good, and then the top is nice and crunchy and sweet. Definitely try this if you want a nice warm coffee cake.